The Everglades is often misunderstood. The water looks dark and dirty, but in fact, it's very clean.
It looks dirty to a lot of people, especially tourists, but it's super clean. It's great for taking a bath because when you get out, you're like squeaky clean because it's so acidic. And it's also, the coffee color is tannic acid from the cypress and a few other trees.
As the dreamer a dream and a travel.
Paddling along on the dark waters can be a bird watcher's dream. Creeks and sloughs act like corridors for wildlife traveling through. More than 200 species of birds sing and soar in the Everglades. Some call Fish-Eating Creek home.
The best time to get your warblers and your songbirds are in the early fall and late spring, because they're migrating through between here and Central America. But we have our own birds here, like a bird that a lifer or a bird watcher would give his right arm for would be the cara. It's a bird that was left over from prehistoric times.
Birds are not the only inhabitant that some say comes from another millennium. The alligator has long fascinated visitors on these waters.
Well, my wife wants to see an alligator.
The big stuff, really. The alligators and yeah, some of the big birds and birds of prey.
I hope to see the wildlife, birds, and I hope an alligator.
When you see a gator glide through the water, you know you are in a land where Mother Nature still has the upper hand over the so-called civilized world.
It's cool and it's fun, and you get to see all this cool fern and all these gators, and there's all sorts of cool birds around.
Children are particularly fascinated by the alligators, and which is good. It will help them and encourage them to come here. The one thing that children should know is that the alligators are only one part of numerous species that occur here, and if learning about the alligators is the door that opens for them to the Everglades, that would be a positive thing.
Alligators are a walking dichotomy. They are slow and clumsy looking, but can outrun a horse in a short sprint. They can be ferocious and yet incredibly gentle.
Really amazing to think that this huge animal, this 8-foot animal that can crush a turtle with her jaws, will also be very delicate, dig open the nest, pick up an egg in her mouth, roll it around in her mouth, and hatch out the baby alligator and have it come out of the mouth without any teeth marks on it.
See you later, alligator. After a while, crocodile. We used to say that as children, just being silly. But in fact, the Everglades is the only place in the world where you can have that conversation and actually mean it.
Yes, the Everglades is the only place in the world where we have both the American alligator, here in my left hand, and the American crocodile, shown here in my right hand. Both of these occur in the southern part of Florida in Everglades National Park. More specifically in the coastal areas. Crocodiles are a more coastal species and alligators are more freshwater species, and in that coastal estuarine area they sometimes intermix. The alligators, you can see, have a much rounder snout, whereas the crocodiles have a much pointier snout. That's one of the differences. Another thing is in the color. The alligators are mostly black in color and the crocodiles are more of an olive green.
When we come back, we meet some of the early inhabitants of the Everglades.
It's been our home. It protected us. At one point, we didn't know if we would survive. With the Removal Act, this Everglades helped us. You might say Mother Nature protected us from the removals, and so here we are, and we're descendants of families that escaped the deportation because of her, the Everglades, the River of Grass.
For the Seminole and Miccosukee Indians, the story of the Everglades is the story of survival and struggle. Mother Nature protected them, and now the Native Americans have joined the fight to protect her by teaching visitors about this land they call Peheoki, the river of grass. In just one lifetime, the river of grass has changed so much. The 86-year-old former Miccosukee chief, Buffalo Tiger, remembers well growing up in the wilderness of South Florida.
So many snakes, all kinds of snakes, poison snake, some of them not poison, but you don't want them to bite you, but they're there, plenty, night and day. Then we have animals, all kinds of animals, like wildcat, the wildcat, people call it bobcat. Used to be panther, used to be bear, and a lot of otters, and lots of alligators. Just many wildlife here. Lots of mosquitoes and lots of spiders, and lots of all kinds of birds.
At the Miccosukee Village, the Atatiki Museum,
that means welcome to camp.
And Billy Swamp Safari, the traditions of the past remain alive.
Everybody look at the cameras.
In a fun, educational way, they teach others about the wonders of their homeland.
Smile for me, smile for me.
26 varieties of snakes slither through the Everglades. 4 are poisonous and can kill.
Anybody want to see the kiss of death? I don't.
Rattlesnakes may strike fear, but many other harmless, brightly colored snakes hang around in the trees and camouflage themselves in the grasses.
When you're afraid of something, it's pretty much a fear because you don't know. It's a fear of the unknown. And if you learn about them, learn the service that they actually are here for instance, killing the rodents, you know, that they do carry diseases. That's a big service right there to begin with, you know, for mankind.
60 kinds of mosquitoes call these swamps and sloughs home. Even though it's only the female that bites, if you are one of the ones being bitten or eaten, you have only one name for any of them: pesky.
There are a lot of animals that use mosquitoes and feed on them, so even though we may consider them pests and also sometimes a health threat, they're an important part of the life cycle and ecosystem for other animals.
I want you to pretend that you're a panther and you're looking for high ground.
Of all the animals that live in the Everglades, few would argue that the panther represents the most regal inhabitant. Their story is another one of struggle woven into the fabric of the ecosystem.
For a Florida panther to survive, they have to kill live prey, and they only eat meat. To understand that, you have to then understand that they have to exert quite a bit of energy to capture their prey. And we know that a deer a week is what a panther would like to be able to have. But if there are no deer or not enough deer, they're having to hunt every single day, and that uses up quite a bit of energy to hunt raccoons and armadillos and possums and some of the smaller prey.
This elusive panther is disappearing. At this time, only 80 remain in the wild, despite desperate efforts of scientists to track and protect them.
There's millions of cat lovers in the nation and in the world. Well, the Florida panther is much more than that because they symbolize a wild America. They symbolize a particular ecosystem that's dominated by the top of the food chain predator. And when you find a panther, and most people know this, you're in real wilderness habitat.
The sawgrass thicket, home for the panther and their food source, was once enough to protect them. Now, as cars, roads, and homes break up their range, even this harsh landscape can't protect them.